listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name is Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM, the host of Community Forum. With me today for our Women's History Month special, our last Women's History Month special of the month, is the person herself who helps me with all these interviews and these questions. It's Sky Soto. Sky Soto is the Marketing and Publication Director here at Southeast New Mexico College. How you doing, Sky?
I'm doing great today. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited because we get to flip the tables on you today, because typically you and I are both interviewing a very influential woman who's made a huge difference here at Southeast New Mexico College as well as in the community. But this time, I'm really looking forward to flipping it on you. So next year when we do this, we're not going to interview you.
No.
Right? So, just go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself. Obviously, your name, your career, what do you enjoy most about your career, where you're from. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, so my name's Sky Soto. I'm the Director of Marketing and Publications here at Southeast New Mexico College. I've been here 7.5 years, almost 8. I started my career fairly young at SENMC, and I started straight out of college, which
means you were how old?
Well,
I mean, come on, it's
guess.
young. It's young. What,
guess.
23, 22?
Yeah, my early 20s.
Okay,
So,
all right.
and it's been great. I love working here. It's been great working with the faculty and staff and students. I went to school in Carlsbad, New Mexico. I'm originally from, I was born in Albuquerque, but I'm originally from the Netherlands as well, so I kind of moved back and forth.
Do you have dual citizenship?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you get dual citizenship that easy? Like, because I know that when you're born in the U.S., you get citizenship, right? But you weren't born in the Netherlands, right? So how does that happen so easy for you guys? Because if it was reversed, it'd be a little more difficult.
So in the Netherlands, if one of your parents is
born there, from there,
you get dual citizenship.
So do you have to pay double taxes? Do you have to pay taxes in America and in the Netherlands?
No,
I'm asking
I don't
you.
have to.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So, like, for example, if you were to, you're an American citizen and you were to live in Italy, right? My wife wants to move to Italy. Okay, if you lived in the U.S. and you're an American citizen and you go and live in Italy full time, you are now paying taxes in both countries.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
Like, if you spend more than 182 days in Italy, you are then considered somebody that has to pay taxes in Italy and in the U.S. at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So it's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
So if you were only a citizen of the Netherlands, right, and then became a citizen of the U.S., you'd have to pay taxes in the U.S. as well.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So very, I find it very interesting. I'm always fascinated when somebody has dual citizenship, such as yourself, on how, like, which one has to pay double taxes and which one doesn't. Obviously, paying double taxes would be kind of hard.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess. So how often do you go to the Netherlands?
Well, I go, to visit my my family over there. Maybe I'll go like once a year. It just depends on when I go. So.
Can I ask an ignorant question?
Sure.
What language is it over there?
It's Dutch.
It is Dutch, okay.
Yes.
And is it very similar to the other European dialects?
So it's a little bit different. It's close to German, but it also has some French influences. It just depends on what area of Holland you're in.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
And do you speak Dutch?
Yes, I speak
Like
fluent
Dutch.
Yeah.
Okay, so may I ask you to say something in Dutch for us?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to just make up a sentence, or do you want me to ask you to say something?
You can just ask me to say
so
something.
so just say, if you wouldn't mind, say something along the lines of, I really like my job at Southeast New Mexico College.
Ik vind mijn werk heel erg leuk bij Southeast New Mexico College.
Okay. I knew Southeast New Mexico College was going to be that, because that's
Yeah.
a standard name. You're right, that I lived in Germany for 4 years when I was in middle school, and I didn't take the time to learn any of it. But I will tell you that is a real strong dialect there. That's cool. That's great, by the way. So besides your family, how many people in Carlsbad speak Dutch?
There have been times where I've met some people, but they've moved since then. So there's been, other Dutch people that have lived here. So It's kind of cool.
Do you have any idea, like, how discombobulated these interviews are when only I'm interviewing you, as opposed to when, like, people that listen to this segment, this is the very last Women's History Month segment that we did. So all our loyal listeners that listen to the other 3 already are going to be like, this guy's way just scattered. You know what I mean? But that's just kind of how I roll. What inspires you to pursue your career, and what do you enjoy most about being here at SENMC?
So what inspired me about my career, I've always been kind of a creative person. When I did my undergraduate degree, which is a Bachelor's of Fine Arts, I did my internship at National Geographic as well.
Was that a whole summer?
Yeah, so that was a whole summer internship in Washington, D.C.
Ooh, that's cool.
So that was really cool. And I did that, and I got to work at the headquarters. So I also worked at local newspapers since my senior year of high school. So I started working at the Current-Argus, and then I worked at newspapers.
So you worked for the Carlsbad Current-Argus when you were in high school here,
yes,
right? And then you were paid, or was that like a non-paid internship?
No, I got paid.
You were full-time, or was it like a freelancer?
Kind of like a freelancer.
A freelancer? Okay,
yeah.
So that's exciting as a high schooler.
Yeah,
right?
So I did that, and then in college I worked for the Silver City Sun News.
Silver City Sun News, a very, very respected publication in Silver City.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I've loved I've been reading the Silver City Sun News. So what I didn't know is that I was reading the Silver City Sun News when you were publishing articles in it, and I had no idea.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, for real, because I was working at a newsroom, right? I mean, you're younger than I am, right? So I was working in a newsroom in Albuquerque, and I would always read the Silver City Sun News for what was happening in the southwest part of the state.
Wow.
And a lot of your stories, actually.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Sure.
Well, that's really cool to hear. So I did that, and then I also worked, some on-campus jobs and things during college.
Work study type stuff. Yeah, those are fun, though.
And then when I graduated, I decided to move back to Carlsbad, and then applied everywhere, and then applied at the college, and I've been here since.
So you applied for other jobs when you first got to Carlsbad, but this one just fell right in your lap, huh?
Yeah, so this, with my background in journalism, and then also kind of my interest in education, I think that's the two that kind of connected that. I think originally I wasn't really sure where I was going to end up.
Right,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I had got my Bachelor's of Fine Arts, so I thought, well, maybe I'm going to end up teaching.
So tell me a little bit about, so I know about your passion in journalism, right?
Yes.
I'm a journalist. I was a local television journalist for a long time, local radio journalist now. But tell me about your passion for education, because your internships and the work that you did in college and in high school didn't really lend towards education, right? That was just working towards the journalism aspect. So tell me, how does the education part factor in?
So during my undergrad, I also worked at a Montessori school. So I did that during a summer, and that was a lot of fun. But I worked with age groups, I would say like Montessori is like kindergarten through 6th grade.
Okay, yeah.
So I got to work with all the ages and kind of figure out, okay, what age groups do I like to work with? And I found out that, I really loved my job there, but I also liked working with the older kids. And then I also did some substitute teaching at the public schools there
Which
as
one?
well.
Oh, down in Silver City?
Yes.
Wow.
So I got to, sub in like a middle school and then in a high school and just kind of figure out what age groups I liked. And the thing I liked about education is just being able to be there for the students, think of creative ideas to get them to think about different subjects and different activities. And I really enjoyed it. But with higher education, it's a lot different. Public school versus higher ed or even Montessori school is a lot different. But what I liked about higher ed is just inspiring people to go back to school. And even if they are not in school and just having a rough time in their life, getting up and getting back to it and seeing how much of a life-changing impact just a 2-year degree or a certificate or a workforce program can do for someone's life is amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to say something similar, I guess. I went ahead and did a lot of teaching, if you will, with young journalists when they got out of college and joined the newsroom. Yeah. And then I really like the idea of working with adults that realize that they want to better their lives. You know what I mean? Or take that next step to do whatever is necessary. Yeah. I respect that tremendously. So I can tell that you've caught the bug for that, considering you've been here 7.5 years already. I'm very happy for you. Is there another step for you, or do you feel like you have the job that you want?
So, I really enjoy working here, so I hope to be here much longer. And I think, as the college grows and watching it grow from being NMSU Carlsbad to Southeast New Mexico College has been incredible.
Yeah. So that's what I really want to
Yes.
ask you. So how's it now, right? Do you like it more now than you did before?
I think now I feel like it's a lot more personable to our community. We're a lot more adaptable to our community as well. So I think I really enjoyed that. Also, I feel like just the benefits have been great, and it's just like a whole different feeling.
You're the head person now, right?
Yes.
So when you were here, when we were in NMSU Carlsbad, you had somebody in Las Cruces you had to check everything with?
So, we did have different guidelines. We had to go through. And
So now you're
stuff.
creating the guidelines.
Yeah, so
I mean,
it's
look
a lot different.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
And you've got a big job around here. And I don't think anybody knows how much you actually put in time-wise. So thank you very much for finding time just to do this interview
you.
because you have so much going on. Some days you check your email. I feel like the only emails I'm getting are from Sky Soto.
Oh.
But that's good. So question number 3, we answered already. So now we're going to get into some of the questions about Women's History Month. And some of these might get a little bit odd because I'm a man asking a woman about these questions, but let's just get over that already, okay?
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced as a woman in your career?
So I think some of the challenges is just being young. Sometimes, you feel like you're not really being taken as seriously. But I feel like that's something that you kind of learn to grow and deal with as you get older, and learning to sometimes say no and sometimes be more assertive is something that, is challenging, but over time you kind of figure out how to, and also how to, really present yourselves in those situations.
Yeah. So do you feel like you face some challenges in your career that as a young woman that a young man may not have to face? Nothing specific, just in generalities.
So I don't know. I think that men probably have similar situations, but I feel like as a woman, it's still different because I feel like even, my field, there's been situations where things are very male dominated as well. And there's also a lot of male dominated fields. I think it just depends on, the situation and what area you're in. But I feel like, it just depends on the situation.
From my experience, communications and public relations is not a male-dominated field any longer. It's
right.
There are more females and more women involved in that career than there are men.
Right.
I am a communications, public relations person. I worked for the mayor of Albuquerque. He had a bunch of public information officers, of which I was one, and I was probably only 2 or 3 men out of 20 people total. Right. So there were 17 women in the public relations field and only 3 men on that group of communications people.
Right.
So I feel like some things have switched, right? Obviously in the 50s and 60s, everything was a male dominated field. Right. So some things have switched. When it comes to public relations and communications, I might be considered the minority if I had one of those jobs because they do seem to be female dominated careers at this point, as some of them are.
Right.
Now, what would you tell other women or girls that are interested in your communications, publication field, marketing field?
I think, just to keep going. And if you're faced with a challenge, don't give up. I think that that's something that women have that's incredible, is that we are strong and we keep persevering. So I think we just need to remember that and just gain your confidence. So
yeah, that's a young person thing in general, right?
Right.
So I remember when I graduated high school and going into college, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this work?
Right.
And then when I'm graduating college and about to get my first job, it's like you're an infant all over again in your head.
Right.
You're like, I'm so nervous. Here's the one thing, and tell me if this is true or not. I graduated college and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to grow up now. Now I'm going to work with adults.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be
different.
super professional.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
Adults aren't necessarily any more mature just because they happen to be a couple years older than you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, every new thing is going to be hard for whatever situation you're in or whoever you are. And I think that's just something.
So is that something you appreciate now that you've had some years in the work experiences, the idea that it's important to have those experiences,
Yes.
those growth experiences, really out of body, holy cow, what am I doing experiences? Because that's what really helps you grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you fail at something or you're faced with a really difficult challenge, that's what helps us learn and grow and move forward. And I think that's important for all of us to learn. I know we've spoken with other people on this podcast as well, and it's similar answers. You need to just remember to keep going and get up, and sometimes you just have to brush yourself off and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So
okay, what does Women's History Month mean to you?
So I think Women's History Month means just remembering, the sacrifices many women have made for us to be able to have different rights, such as the right to vote, even the right to have a credit card, the right to,
Interesting fact, since it's International Women's Day was just the other day, right?
Yes.
Right. I mean, we pre-record this, so even though this airs on the 27th, we're recording it just a couple of days after International Women's Day. It wasn't until 1974 that a woman did not have to have their husband's signature to get a loan.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's only 50 years.
Right.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So I'm very surprised. So we think that we've made a lot of progress, and we have.
Right.
But in the scheme of history, we haven't really gone that far, right? It hasn't been that long since If it was 1973, Sky, and you walked into a bank, they'd be like, "Well, can I get your husband's signature for a loan?"
Yeah.
How weird does that sound?
Yeah.
I mean, so it hasn't been that long. We've come a long way, but we're not done.
Right. There's a lot more that could be done. And I think, it's just important to remember that, even if it seems like a long time ago, it really hasn't been. And we just need to remember everything that we have and to remember that it doesn't get taken away either.
Keep making progress. Don't take any steps back, only take steps forward, right?
Yes.
Appreciate the steps that we have taken forward, but definitely don't take any steps back.
Right.
So this is going to lead us to our next question, right? What future do you hope for young women and girls now in life and in higher education, knowing that we just talked about it wasn't that long ago since we made some major strides?
Yeah. I just hope that women and girls have access to higher education and continue to have access to higher education, that they are able to pursue their dreams and pursue their careers that they want to go into, that they're able to overcome challenges that they may face and not to give up. And I think we just need to move forward as women.
Okay. All right. I respect that, Sky. I'm not going to get in the way of that. I'm not one of those to do that. All right. So you've talked a little bit about your younger self and how you were, nervous about things, right? Whether you're a young woman or a young man in general, but nervous about things. So is there any particular piece of advice you would give a 17-year-old Sky Soto?
So I would
Your last name wasn't Soto, but that's all right. A 17-year-old Sky.
Yeah, I would just tell myself to, to keep going, not to give up. When I moved to Carlsbad, it was really challenging. I moved here when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
I spent most of my elementary school in the Netherlands, so
wow.
I literally had to learn how to read and write English. I mean, I knew how to speak it, but
sure. But you weren't writing term papers in English.
So
right.
I think that was a really challenging time for me. And knowing that I overcame that now, I would really tell my young self to just keep going and to not let those challenges get in the way, because you're going to get there. And now I write all the time and I'm reading, and it's part of my daily life.
When was the last time you've written in Dutch?
So actually I do, write my family, like I'll send them cards and stuff. And then I've also, I'll send messages and stuff to family members.
Do you write emails in Dutch or in English?
Well, English, because I'm using email.
Like, would you ever email your family in the Netherlands?
I would write them in Dutch.
You're Dutch. And so how does that work with the keyboard?
It's the same letters. I don't have any problems with that.
Oh, right. That is the beauty of European languages, like almost all the same, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I was like, this seems way confusing to me just to try to figure out how to type Dutch. But no, it's just, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for, I'm glad that I let everybody know how American I really am here. So I'd like to ask if I could, if you could discuss a little bit your approach to mentoring young students, particularly young female students. And I know we've got a lot on campus that you do mentor a little bit. So kind of talk to us about your approach of that.
So I would just, be there for them, be a friendly face in the hallway. You'll see me walking around campus, and even if I don't know a student, I'll just be like, hey, how are you today? Or if they have a challenge, I always have my door open. I'm in a high traffic area.
Yes, you are.
So anyone can come in and just ask how things are going. And but really being there has been great. And then also just if they're interested in marketing or photography, just kind of giving them an open mind and letting them know the opportunities they can go into that field.
Okay. What about some female educators or leaders that you admire? And then tell us why.
So I don't know if they're really educators or leaders, but they're just two people that I really admire. And there's actually a movie called Lee, and it's about a wartime photographer, Lee Miller.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed watching that, and also just learning about the sacrifices that she had to go through as a wartime photographer during World War II. And another photographer during that same time period is Emmy Andriessen. She's actually a Dutch photographer.
Okay.
And during World War II, she did photography, but she was part of the resistance and the underground photography group. So she had a very dangerous job of photographing the war, and she photographed the hunger winter and all the difficult things that were happening. And watching that really made me realize that for them, it was so important to document history. And even though that they could have been killed for it, they still made that sacrifice to do it. And I really admire those two females, because not just because I'm a photographer and I have a journalism background, but just thinking about how important journalism is and photography is, and not taking it for granted either.
Right. I was like, think back on World War II. The Netherlands didn't really put up much of a fight, right? So when you look at the history, so their fight was basically like guerrilla fighting, right? It was like guerrilla warfare, if you will. The Germans were very strong, right, at that time. So what they had to do is they had to fight from within, right, underground, if you will, to help their cause. Because when you look at the history of it, they waved the white flag pretty early.
Right. So, it's important to remember, the people that were part of the resistance and that made that fight.
Their resistance was underground. It wasn't like head-to-head at the border.
No.
You know what I mean? Didn't make it any less important a resistance. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they just like the French in World War II, the reason everything's still standing in France is because they didn't fight the Germans. They kind of waved the white flag and gave it up. So the resistance became underground, which is how you have women as strong as they were in the Netherlands. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a full circle thing I'm trying to bring up, right?
Yeah.
The country itself didn't feel like they could win, so they weren't going to get destroyed to lose. So they fought from within and underground, right? And it gave a lot of people the opportunity to do that. It's easy to forget World War II history and how those countries really did appease the Germans, because the Germans were going to destroy their entire communities.
Right.
So we don't know if it's the smart thing or not the smart thing. And with everything happening in the world now, with our president and the relationships overseas, it's easy to think about who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
I don't know if you thought much about that. No?
So, I think it's just, going back to it, just remembering the people that did that is just incredible.
So, and what was that woman's name again? The war photographer?
Emmy Andriessen.
Emmy Andriessen?
Yes.
Okay, obviously another word that I'm not very familiar with.
And Lee Miller, and she's from, I believe, wasn't she American?
I thought she was American.
Yeah, I think she's American.
There was a show recently about her.
Yes.
I think it was on Amazon Prime or something like that. The other woman I was not familiar with. I think that those are really strong stories.
Right.
And I would really like to see something on her.
Yeah.
You could do a show on that for sure.
And I think they had an exhibit on some of her work at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. And they've had a couple of different museums that have showcased her work. And I think there's a street named after her there as well.
Okay.
So.
I've never been. I'd love to go. What's a lesson or a story about women's history that you believe every single student should learn? Male, female, all of it.
So I think going back, I mean, there's so many different, historic moments, but I think just remembering everything that women have done throughout time, thinking about like the women's suffrage movement, thinking about how long it took and how much women had to really stand up for themselves to be able to get to where we are right now.
Right. There's no shortage of that or anybody else that's been having to do that. And it's just one of those things that, especially in the United States, even they had to fight for.
Right.
Right. They had to fight for the whole time. Nothing was given.
Right.
Right. I mean, and it goes all the way back, unless you were a white guy from England, right? Because if you were Italian or Irish or Jewish, you still had to fight for what you wanted.
Right.
Right. This country has a history of, if you came over and unless you were like the original 13 colonies guys, right, you had to literally fight for it. That's why my grandmother's last name is McClellan, right? Why is it McClellan? Because she was Irish. So she was discriminated against as well for being Irish and for being a woman.
Right.
So every single group that's come over here has had to fight, but I think the women have had one of the hardest fights. It's hard to say if it was harder than slavery, but you know what I mean? They had one of the hardest fights for sure. We're not here to judge that. The climb has been steep, but look at where we're at today.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
so
it's incredible. Anything
else you want to add on that? Like what are we missing here? Like I dominated. I said some crazy things, right? I'm talking out loud off the top of my head. What do you want to close this out with?
I just want to close this with, no matter where you are in life, just keep going. Whether you're, a female or a male, just keep going. And I just want to empower women to, get their higher education. Don't give up. Don't meet, the status quo. Like if someone tells you what to do, think of it something think for yourself. Like, is this something I want? And just keep going.
Well, I was going to say, there's some really great opportunities here at Southeast New Mexico College for everybody, but young women especially. If a woman would like to be in the mining industry, that'd be great. If you'd like to be in the oil and gas industry, we've got you connected there. If you want to set yourself up to go to a 4-year degree for a bit of a white-collar job, you can, but you can get right in on the ground floor in our community as a woman and really make a lot of money quickly.
Yes.
Right. Yep. Sky Soto, Marketing and Publications Director here at Southeast New Mexico College, a Netherlands native, which I think is really, really cool, by the way. And I just want to thank you for putting up with me for 26, 27 minutes, and I'm glad we were able to get your story out there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.